Hey folks, Zach Osterman here, IU Insider, Indianapolis Star. This is the first of our, Atlantis video diaries. Going to do ideally at least one of these a day. In addition to our post game podcast, I'll obviously keep it shorter. It'll just be me out here. Mike Nislik stayed back to cover the bucket game, but I'm kind of skipping the globe right now. Columbus Saturday for football, Bloomington Sunday for soccer, and now in Atlantis. Just kind of getting you ready for, obviously, Indiana's week out here, an important one for the Hoosiers. First recap, I think it's worth saying Terry Morin's women's team was out here over the weekend for the women's Atlantis tournament. And despite a 69-39 loss in the championship game on Monday afternoon against North Carolina, I think it's fair to say an important weekend of results for the Hoosiers. Obviously, had a couple setbacks early in the season, beat Columbia, which is not a terrible team, in the Ivy, and then beat a ranked Baylor team in the semifinal. Sydney Parrish did suffer an injury. It sounds like Terry Morin doesn't have much of an update on that yet, unless I missed something while I've been traveling. You know, she did say something like, we know Sydney's tough, and if it were up to her, she'd play, but we're going to protect her because we have a lot of season left. That sounds more optimistic than something really, really long term. But Terry Morin's also said that they're going to need to get some imaging done to know the full extent of what's going on. From the men's perspective, a really important week. We've talked about many times. You know, this team kind of left itself with a lot to do from a non-conference resume quality perspective here in Atlantis, and that starts with Louisville, noon Wednesday from the Atlantis ballroom, the Imperial Arena ballroom. Over in Atlantis Resort, just across the street from where I am right now. The Cardinals are number 58 in KenPom. They're 3-1. They have their best win right so far is a 15-point win at home against Winthrop on Friday. Obviously, a program first-year head coach Pat Kelsey is familiar with because he coached there for several years before going to Charleston and then on to Louisville. The Cardinals are kind of a team that operate in some extremes. They force a ton of turnovers. They're fourth nationally in opponent turnover percentage. They don't turn it over a ton, but they do force a lot of turnovers. Even their loss, when they lost to Tennessee by 22, they forced 20 turnovers in that game. Now, Tennessee still won by a wide margin and controlled the game largely throughout because Louisville's not a very efficient offensive team. They shoot a ton of threes. There, to kind of give you a sense of the preferences and styles in this matchup, Indiana is 343rd nationally. 30.4% of Indiana's field goal attempts are threes. On the other hand, Indiana hits 35.7% of those threes, which is 104th nationally. Louisville shoots 54.6% of its field goals as threes. So more than 50% of Louisville's overall shots from the field are three-pointers, but Louisville shoots under 30% from three as a team. So they take a lot. They don't necessarily make a lot. If you look at kind of their game by game, they made 11 against Morehead State, but on 36 attempts. They made 10 against Tennessee, but on 39 attempts. Their best shooting day so far was against Bellarmine. They were 12 of 35, 34.3% in that single game sample. They pressure a lot. They play a high energy style. They're not the biggest team in the world. They're efficient on twos, but they are not necessarily going to force the ball to the rim. Much more guard and wing oriented. Try to spread you out. Try to drive and kick, which has been a problem for Indiana, obviously. But then they got to make shots, and they haven't. To this point in the season, they have not been a good shooting team at all, really. But they will live and die with the three. That's kind of what I think Pat Kelsey wants to be his roster's equalizer this season, because Louisville is in year one of a pretty substantial program rebuild. Brought in a ton of transfers. You've got a guy like Chucky Hepburn, who Indiana fans are very familiar with. Chucky Hepburn's time at Wisconsin. Keyshawn Pryor, who's been at South Florida and I think Boise State. Terrence Edwards, who's a really good player at James Madison for Mark Byington. Just a lot of different pieces. A couple players from Charleston, where Pat Kelsey came from, trying to bring a lot of pieces together in a really short space of time for Louisville. And Pat Kelsey's way home is basically just see if you can't kind of get the game a little bit frenetic and force a lot of turnovers, and then see if you can't make those threes. And obviously, from Indiana's perspective, it can't be a game where you turn the ball over a lot. That has been an issue for Indiana. It can't be a game where you allow a lot of offensive rebounds on three-point attempts. That's been an issue for Indiana going back even to last season. And it certainly can't be a game where you let those threes go down, because if you catch Louisville on a day when it's making those shots, and obviously, statistically they don't most of the time, but all it takes is one day, and suddenly, you're having to scratch and claw to play catch up on the scoreboard. So, from Indiana's perspective, ball security, 3-point defense, offensive rebounding, I think are the three really big keys here, along with just kind of sound defensive fundamentals. Don't allow a lot of dribble penetration. Don't allow a lot of drive and kick. Maybe don't help a ton in a game like this either, because you got so many guys on the perimeter that aren't going to be afraid to pull the trigger if they get a shooting window. Big game for Indiana. We will talk to Mike Woodson and I think some players tomorrow morning here in Atlantis, and we'll have more on that, obviously. IndyStar.com/sports as always. For now, for the Indianapolis Star, I'm Zach Osterman. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you soon.